So, the first tip is to have a good goal. Why is that the first thing that I want to tell you? Well, I have a lot of experience with this, and the number one thing that people ask me is, how do I start? What do I do? How do I improve? And it's very difficult to answer that question because they don't have a goal or they don't have a specific goal. Sometimes people say, I want to improve my English. Hmm. Well, if you don't have a little bit more direction, it'll be very difficult to meet your goal or to succeed. So here's an example. If you are going to throw an arrow, but there's no target, what will happen? Will you be able to say you're throwing the arrow well? How can you measure it if you don't have a target? Here's another example. Let's say you want to run a race, okay? But you don't know where you're going to run, you don't know where the finish line is, you don't know who you're competing against, or what is the measurement to see if you did well or poorly. What is the purpose? What is your direction? What is your focus? How can you achieve that goal if it isn't clear? So, the number one thing I want you to do to improve your English studying is to set a goal that gives you direction. Set a goal that helps you focus. For example, are you interested in learning English so that you can help tourists? While I was in Rwanda, I taught one motorcycle driver who often worked with tourists. So he really needed to know how to have small talk, he really needed to know directions, and he needed to know how to ask for help, specifically related to taking people where they needed to go. So for him, it was very easy to get quick progress. It was very easy for him to say, oh, okay, I don't need to know everything in the English language today, but I can immediately learn how to ask questions and give directions and learn some key phrases and how to describe places. I can do that. And that is a great way to get started. And then you can build from there. So, tip number one, set a goal that can give you direction and focus. All right, step number two is to avoid this mistake. Joslyn, what mistake? The number one mistake you can make is to give up. That's it. If you quit practicing or you tell yourself that the goal is not worth it, then you might give up. But I'm telling you, don't do it. It is the worst thing you could do. Let me tell you a story. So, I told you that I taught in many different countries, including one in East Africa. That country is Rwanda. It's a tiny country in East Africa, and I went there to teach English. Since I was there teaching English, I had my main job to help people learn English, but I had a goal to learn Kinyarwanda. I thought that learning that language would help me have better communication with different people in the community. It would help my students see, oh, if she can learn the language that we speak, then we can learn the language that she speaks. I had these great ideas, and then I gave up. So one day I remember going into a small coffee shop, and the owner saw me and saw that my skin was brown, and I think she assumed that I was from the country. So when I opened my mouth with imperfect pronunciation and some grammar mistakes, probably, or pauses and hesitation and different things that showed that I was not a native speaker, she looked at me like, hmm, I'll tell you, that's not normal. That doesn't happen many times, but it does happen. And it can be terrible. It can hurt your feelings, but don't give up. That's the message. Don't give up. So I remember that, and I was discouraged. And I'm sure many of you might say, ah, I knew it. I don't want it. I want to avoid feeling ashamed. So I don't want to study English, or I don't want to speak English unless I'm perfect at it, because I don't want to be in that situation. I understand, because that's what I thought after I had that experience. But I want to encourage you not to do that. So remember, I had this great goal, then I felt ashamed, and I said, my goal is not so important. I don't need to learn this language. To communicate in a different language is not so important. I will speak to the people who can speak my language, and that's it. Well, let me tell you what happened. I got married to a Rwandan who speaks that language that I was ashamed to study. Now, he also speaks English, so that's great, but many of his family members and friends don't. So now my extended family speaks a language that I was ashamed to learn. So I think many times we get ashamed or we feel bad about small things because we don't realize the possibilities that exist. So I'm encouraging you not to give up when you feel ashamed. But like I said, I understand that it's hard. So, my tip number 3 is going to help you if you are struggling with practicing or feeling ashamed about where you are with English. All right. So, I don't want you to be discouraged, but I do want you to know that I understand. Talking to native speakers can be very difficult, especially when you're at the lower levels. So, my step number 3 is a strategy for you if you want to improve your English speaking, but either you don't have a native speaker to practice with, or you're not ready to practice with a native speaker yet. All right, the strategy is simple. It is consume what you like and produce something in English. So, consume what you like, produce something in English. Let me give you an example. Many people love music. For example, my husband, who I mentioned in step 2, loves Jason Derulo. So he'll listen to his music for hours, maybe. And sometimes he sings. Now, sometimes he sings and it's not completely understandable what he's singing, but Most of the time, if he reads the lyrics and sings, then he is able to pronounce things very well, and he's able to get the meaning, and he's able to use that vocabulary. So here's tip: consume something you like. Listen to a song in English or an artist who sings in English. Read the lyrics to get an idea of what they're saying and how they're saying it. Then sing along. You will pick up vocabulary that way. You will pick up pronunciation. You will pick up slang, idioms, intonation, so many things. And it's fun. You don't have to be ashamed of speaking to a native speaker with it. You can do it at any time, in any place, and it's free. Uh-huh. Another example is to read. I know in many countries, my students from countries like Japan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Brazil, a lot of them tell me that they have a lot of experience reading, but they don't have a way to practice speaking. And they always want a way to practice speaking. So here's a tip: find an article or a book or anything that you want, read it, whether it's in English or your native language, it doesn't really matter, and then produce something in English. So, if you read an article that's really interesting about whatever topic, let's say, for example, you read an article that's really interesting about your favorite musician. Let's go with musician. Let's say that Diamond Platinum just got married to someone and you are so excited to hear about what's going on. Produce something in English. Try to summarize the story or tell the story in English. But Joslyn, I don't want to talk to English native speakers. So who am I telling it to? Here's the key. You don't have to tell it to anyone. You can just record yourself. And then once you have told the story in English and recorded it on your phone, on your iPad, or on your computer, then play the recording back to yourself. You will hear where you're struggling. You will hear it. Especially if you are strong in listening and reading, you will hear the mistakes or you will see where the gaps are. Now, with your goal in mind, you can say, oh, I was trying to tell this story, but it was really difficult for me to use the past tense. That is great news because it tells you that you can go and focus on vocabulary and verbs in the past tense, and then you will see improvement. So, those are my 3 steps to improve your English today. Step number 1, have a goal that gives you direction. Step number 2, don't give up even if it's difficult. And step number 3, consume something you like, produce something in English. If you found these tips helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you think it could be helpful for someone else who's studying English, then be sure to share it with them.